just to start off with, just tell us your story. How did you end up at Shorter? When did you first realize that you were losing your sight?
Those are two very different questions.
Very, very different
Those are two very, very different questions. Okay, so the coming to Shorter one is kind of an odd, ironic story. So so I just finished grad school at Ohio State back in May, and while I was at Ohio State, I was applying to either short-term summer positions or full-time positions because I really wanted to try to start teaching during the summer. And so I applied to a small school in North Carolina, and like 2 days before I graduated, I found out I got the position. And so I'm originally from Ohio, but my family lives in the Carolinas now, so I wanted to be more down here than where I was. More all the young
Yes.
college students that are here today that are like first and second year. I don't know what age, but so I applied to the position, got it, and moved from Ohio to, I actually, because the timing was so close to when I was going to have to move out of my apartment, I ended up moving to where my parents live for like 2 weeks so that I can find housing in North Carolina and everything. So I moved to South Carolina for like 2 weeks, and then I moved up to North Carolina, I guess it would be up. I moved to North Carolina for about 2 months, and in the middle of my position at North Carolina, like I said, it was just a short-term position, I was applying for more full-time positions. And I went on this website that, it was one of those sort of like a monster.com kind of website. And so I went on it and I said, I'm looking for position. It was one specific to teaching positions. And so I went on it and I said, I'm looking for positions, preferably small schools, preferably teaching oriented, all these kinds of things that fit the school nicely. And one thing I said was between Virginia and Georgia. And so I never heard of Shorter, knew nothing about it. And I got, Shorter happened to be listed on this website, and so I got an email one day that said, this school, Shorter, has a position available. And so I applied and promptly forgot about my application after, I looked through the website and I'm like, oh, this sounds cool, it looks like what I'm looking for. Promptly forgot that I had even applied to it. It was going on with all my teaching in North Carolina. And then in July, I get this phone call from someone over in, I think she's in the provost's office. I can't quite remember which office she's in. But I got this call from this woman, and she said, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I'm from Shorter University, and we'd like to offer you an interview. And I went, you're who? From what school? Can you spell that? Because I'm on a cell phone, so I couldn't even quite understand that she was saying Shorter. I'm like, what school? Where? Where is Shorter located? Did I apply to you guys? I mean, I literally could not remember this application. I actually had to go back and look through my old emails because the application, if I remember correctly, most of it was done through, or half of it was done through email. So I actually had to go back through old emails to find out that, yes, I actually did apply to this school. So thankfully I accepted the interview, and the rest was history. And so then I moved, 2 months after I moved to North Carolina, I moved here. So that's that part. How I lost my vision, that's a totally unrelated story. So I was born with a really rare condition, and I can never spell this correctly, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But if you need the particular what the particular disorder is called, I would like the spelling of it. I would just Google roughly what this sounds like, and you should be able to get the spelling. It's called microphthalmia, and it's a really, really rare condition. And I have no vision in my left eye, which I guess would be this side for you guys. But my left eye and in my right eye, I had usable vision, but not great vision. And so I was visually impaired from birth. And then in college, I think I was in my junior year, it was coming. And on that Thursday, I started noticing something weird was going on with my vision. And I'm like, oh, I'm just tired. Friday comes along, and I'm like, things are getting a little worse, but I'm still sort of thinking, okay, I'm just tired. So I called my mom, and I was telling her what was going on, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I think I'm just tired. And she goes, well, let's wait till Monday, and we'll see how things are at that point. And I said, okay. So I go to sleep that night, and I actually had a little bit of a headache. I have no idea if it's related at all or not, but because we also had like a homecoming banquet with a really loud band, and so I don't know what to exactly do there. So then Saturday, I was trying to do homework, and because I was visually impaired, I was already using special magnification equipment that would enlarge things quite nicely for me. And I had it on the largest setting possible, which is gigantic print. We're talking like that big. And I called my mom and I said, Mom, I can't read. I literally could not see what was on the screen at the largest magnification. I still had some vision, but I couldn't actually see. Oh no, not another one. This is like the third tour that has gone through in like 5 minutes. Yeah, they just keep coming through. I think it's a something. My mom's like, okay, we need to call the eye doctor. And so they got me in on Saturday night. And the doctor said, basically, you've lost 2/3 of the vision in this eye. And so 3 days flat. And he said, well, I think it's stable at this point. So, it shouldn't drop anymore, but I don't think it's reversible. And within a year and a half, I lost the rest of it. So I think he was a little bit wrong on that. And I actually lost the very last part of it. So as an undergrad, I majored in both education and psychology. And so right about 2 weeks after I finished losing the last of my vision, I had a student teach, which was quite interesting. Yes. I survived it, but it was quite interesting. So that's how I lost my vision. So yeah, they're totally
So
if you guys need to shut that door, feel free. If that's
go ahead, David, you got it.
I know, it could get really noisy out there.
Yes.
This hall is really bad for that. And if I go too fast, or if you need me to...
No, you're doing... No, this is great. This is exactly what we're looking for.
Okay. And if you guys need to record anything,
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so you already were using the magnification devices,
right? Yeah.
To help you as best as you could.
I was doing a mix of, before I started losing any of my vision, at times, especially when I was younger, I actually could just use glasses. They were pretty thick glasses, so they're not really normal glasses, but they're like the bottle. What do people call those? The bottle cap bottle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
No, I know.
Those types of things. So they were the like really thick ones. But I could actually, if I held a piece of paper right here, I could actually see like 12 or 14 font, but it looked like that big.
Okay.
So it looked really tiny, so it was super hard to read. But part of that too, I don't know if you guys know anything about visual acuity. Either of you?
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay. So basically, a normal, the sort of standard vision acuity is 20/20. My visual acuity was 2200. What that means is that what somebody with 20/20 vision saw standing at 20 feet away from something, standing 200 feet away from something, I would see that it would look exactly the same 20 feet away from me. So that's basically, and the cutoff point for visual impairment is 2200. And I had that in one eye. So, like, even holding it right here, it was still really tiny to me. So it would have been like you holding it
way out
there. Yeah.
So I can imagine, like, what kind of difficulties, especially after you lost, all of your
Right.
vision, and then you had to go in. You were still taking classes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, I didn't even miss any school because I was a neurotic perfectionist. So I didn't even
That's
even
impressive.
when they told me I lost my vision, I'm like, oh, I still need to go to school on Monday. So I mean, like, I missed virtually no school. When I was first losing my vision, it was. I think that was probably the most difficult point in terms of being able to get all the accommodations and stuff I needed, because the first immediate change was so fast and it was so extensive that I actually, that semester, to be able to survive, I ended up having to, I was taking a, I can't remember, I think it was like calculus or something like that, it was some math class, and I ended up having to drop it because they couldn't accommodate the graphing calculator fast enough. They couldn't get a adapted version that I would actually be able to see fast enough, and so there was no way for me to actually do the class successfully. And all of my professors were suddenly, because this was also like right before midterms, all of my professors were doing, and that was another reason I felt like I can't miss school, because I'm not going to screw up my GPA, blah, blah, blah. So because of that, my professors were doing things like, okay, we're going to enlarge this as much as we can, we're going to give you as much extra time as you need. We will, a lot of them gave the exam to me orally. One professor let me audio tape, yes, taping, I'm old. My responses, all kinds of stuff like that. So, and now I use speech software. I'm gonna have to bring this over. I don't know if this is going to be loud enough. Before I do this, let me make sure what I'm doing, because I can't let you guys hear grades or anything.
No.
So hang on 1 second. I'm just going to go into oops, that's not it. Alright. Let's slow this down. Okay, so I use, and we're going to hope that you guys can hear this. I don't know. If worse comes to worse, I'll bring my laptop up a little closer. But I use speech software on my computer, so it reads literally everything off of things like Microsoft Word and Excel and basically all of those programs. Outlook Express, or I'm on Microsoft Outlook, sorry. Internet Explorer, basically everything. And so, for example, we would read. Oh, okay, I know what's wrong. I don't know. Can you even hear that?
I heard it.
You can? Okay.
I
And what it's doing is it's reading, you might have noticed, I don't know if you could tell, but the very first word was spoken a little bit differently. That's telling me that the first word has a capital.
Okay.
So it's actually telling me that, it's telling me punctuation. And I can also make it read letter by letter. I can make it read the whole thing all at once. I can make it read word by word. So there's lots of different things that I can do that. Yeah. So it's very so those are the types of accommodations I typically use. When I'm teaching in class, I do the same thing, I just do it with headphones. So that's how I put my notes when I'm actually teaching.
Yes, ma'am. You have not one, but two doctorates.
And like I said, I'm a neurotic perfectionist.
Which is, that's impressive,
Crazy?
and that is crazy, but it's so very impressive.
Thank you.
What motivated you to to keep pursuing that,
Right.
especially in so much adversity?
Yeah. So I went into. What are you doing there? Okay. When I went into clinical psychology originally, wanting to be a psychotherapist and do therapy. And I got about halfway through my degree, and I started work on my dissertation, and I also happened to get a teaching position through a local community college. I was just looking for some minor teaching experience because I think it would look really good on my CV, which is basically the same thing as a resume. And so when I started teaching and when I started doing my dissertation, I started realizing that I loved doing research. I'm sort of weird. I had a lot of fun doing my dissertation, which is really unusual. I loved my teaching experience. And I knew that I started realizing, I think this is what I want to do. I think I actually want to teach and do research at the college level. And I realized that my degree was, because it was from a program that was very focused on practice and very non-focused on research and teaching. I mean, basically my only real research experience was my dissertation. And there was no way that was going to be enough teaching experience for any type of program. Like, had I tried to go from there to this position, I wouldn't have been able to get it because I just didn't have the teaching background. And so I realized I needed to go back to grad school or find some way to continue. And when I was an undergrad, I had actually done, with my undergrad advisor, I had actually done some research in cognitive psychology, which I don't know how much you guys know about what cognition is. Do you guys know?
Did you ever take a psychology class, Dave?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's.
There's a test. No, it's easy.
It's got to do with thought, doesn't it?
It does. So it deals with things like thought, intelligence, how we perceive and sense the world around us, how we understand language, those types of things. And when I was an undergrad, I did a research project on psycholinguistics, which is a sub-discipline within cognition. It's basically the study of how your mind processes language. So what are the steps that are taking place in your brain for you to be able to recognize the words you're hearing or the words you're seeing. So I really, really loved the project that I was doing, and I knew I wanted to go, if I had to do it all over again, I'm like, I want to go cognitive. Because when I was an undergrad, I had actually almost gone the cognitive route. And so when I was applying to grad schools for the second time, I'm like, the main reasons that I was doing so obviously were the research and teaching, but I figured if I'm going to do it, I might as well just go ahead and get the degree that's in the field that I really love. And so I ended up going back for a whole second PhD. And part of the reason that, do you guys know what a postdoc is?
Postdoc, is that like work you do after your?
Yeah, so after you get your PhD, a lot of people go into a postdoc, and this provides you with some extra specialty in your area. So whether it be learning a new type of therapy or learning a new type of research or what have you. And I figured that after my clinical degree, I was going to probably have to do a postdoc anyway. And I figured going back to start all over with grad school was actually only going to take about 2 more years than the postdoc, and would actually give me a whole extra degree. And because I hadn't really focused in cognitive stuff as a grad student, it made more sense to me to start over and just let myself have that time to sort of get up to speed on cognitive, rather than being expected to already be an expert in something I hadn't really focused on since undergrad. So that's sort of where the second PhD really came from.
And here you are at Shorter, at a Christian university, and how has your faith impacted your journey?
Well, when I was an undergrad, I was at a school that was incredibly similar to Shorter, with a couple of differences. It was actually part of the Quaker faith. I'm not Quaker, but I liked the values that they have were very similar to what they are here. And the only other difference was that it was very cold in the winter because it was up in Ohio. And so I knew that someday I really wanted to teach somewhere similar to the school that I had gone to. And so when this opportunity came along, it gave me sort of that extra, or that sort of exactly where I wanted to be. As an undergrad, being at that, before I went to that school, I had grown up in public schools all the way through high school. And during that, I had sort of what I guess you'd call a lukewarm Christian,
Mhm.
where, I went to church on Sundays and said, I'm a Christian, and
Yes,
that was
ma'am.
basically about it. And during my, I think it was more my senior years when I really got hooked up with these kids. During my senior year of high school, I got to know a group of students that were all Christians, and a lot of them were heading toward the same college that I would ultimately go to.
Mhm.
And they invited me, one of them invited me to, she was in choir with me, and we sat next to each other in choir every day for like 2 years, and she kept telling me I needed to come to her youth group. And because the church I was going to did not have a youth group,
Mhm.
and I really wanted to go to a youth group. And so their church, she invited me to their youth group, and I went once, and I'm like, okay, I'm going back. And so like every week after that, I ended up going to it, and they started to teach me more of what it means to be a Christian. And then when I got to college, and I think that was part of why I chose the college I did, I think that probably had some influence. And then when I got to college, because I was in this constant Christian environment, and our professors were very similar to a lot of what I've seen here, where like you can go talk to a professor and they're like, so here's my views and my beliefs about Christianity, and blah, 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 blah. And it was great because through those conversations and through interactions with friends of mine at school who were really strong Christians, I really started to learn what it really meant to be a Christian. In fact, one of my favorite memories from my undergrad days was one evening a group of us decided, we were all bored, and decided to go just walk around campus. And so we're walking around campus, and it's probably close to the same size as this school, campus-wide size. And so we're walking around, it's like 9, 10 o'clock at night. And we went over to a set of steps and sat down, and we just started chatting. And then all of a sudden, we all just started singing like every Christian praise and worship song we could come up with. And for some reason, that memory just sticks so strongly in my memory as like one of my absolute favorite experiences there. And it was just one of those experiences where it really strengthened and built my faith in some ways. And then I also had, even though we weren't a Baptist school, I had some opportunities to go. We had BSU, or what's now BCM, what used to be BSU. When I started, it was BSU, and they switched it over in the middle. So I had the opportunity with BCM to go on 2 mission trips as well as a mission trip with my church. And I think it was through those that I really started to develop my faith. And after that, I knew I wanted to really be at a Christian college.
That's awesome.
I know that's the super long answer to that question, but
That's great.
yeah.
Well, and I just got one more question.
Okay. I can do one more,
Well,
not
okay,
2,
great.
just 1. Although I don't know, your first one ended up being 2, so I don't know.
It's very true. It's
All right, go for it.
But if there's one thing that you could take away from all your experiences getting your 2 doctorate, pushing through, even though you lost your sight, ending up at shorter. If there's one thing that you could take away from it, what would it be? It might be hard to narrow it down to
Yeah.
just, but if there's.
I think the thing I would most have to say is it's really been the thing that's given me determination, because one thing that I've always strived to do is to demonstrate to people that just because you can't see, or just because you have some, whatever it be, disability or just anything, it doesn't mean you can't do something. So I've worked very, 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 very hard to demonstrate that to people. And I think that's actually something I feel very blessed to have, and I wouldn't have had that. I think I wouldn't have had a lot of that had I not lost my full vision, because when I was visually impaired but had some useful vision, it was like, okay, you gotta hold a book up here, that's all that different. So people were never, people were like, okay, you're visually impaired, but it was like no big thing. Because I had usable enough vision that I could walk around without a dog or, whatever. And so at that time, unless you were looking at my face or you were watching me read, most people couldn't tell that I was visually impaired. So if I were just walking down the street and you hadn't seen my face, you would never know. And so I think that's the biggest thing. There's a saying that my only regret is I'm not the one that came up with this, but and this will be a great thing to have at the very end of your presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's an awesome quote that I absolutely love, and like I said, my only regret is that I'm not the one that came up with it. But I don't actually know who it's from, so I was just listed as an unknown source. I know it's from somebody in Ohio, because I found it in an Ohio newspaper, but it was years ago. And it was actually from someone that was visually impaired that they were interviewing. And the quote is, "It's not the sight, like S-I-G-H-T, it's not the sight that creates success. It's the vision."
Wow.
Yeah, I love that phrase,
That's
that
That's
statement.
in-
I'm so sad that I didn't come up with that.
That is, I like it.
Yeah, it's not the sight that creates success, it's the vision. Yeah, in fact, if when you open my door, if you look on the bottom of my office hours, it says that, and it's also on my email.
It is on your emails.
Yes,
Yes, I
yeah,
remember.
yeah, it's that same phrase. So,
Thank you so much for
not
your
a problem
time.
at all. I'm more than